to another lazy show where we teach you AutoCAD in a way that it's more productive, more efficient, so you can stop wasting your time. As always, I show up here each Sunday at 10 a.m. and that is Philadelphia or Pennsylvania in the United States time. So we're gonna start soon with today's presentation. We have something awesome to share today to learn, so you can immediately implement in your AutoCAD workflow. But as always, I like to first stop and go to the chat, read some of your comments, see how you are you doing today, and we're gonna do that. So first, let me go ahead and say thank you to these folks on my screen, because thanks to these folks, I'm here doing this live show. They are supporting my work either on YouTube as a YouTube member or as a Patreon. Thank you very much for your support, guys. All right, let me jump to the chat now before we start the presentation. Let's see how you are doing today, right? Our friend Doug says, good morning, Irving and members. A lot cheers is in order for our mentor. A big congrats to you, Irving. Thank you, Doug. I think you are referring to, for people who don't know, right? I just graduated with a bachelor's in architecture. So I think Douglas is referring to that post that I did, I think on LinkedIn or on YouTube also, I believe. Thank you, Douglas. Shine says, afternoon all, what's the big cheer? Yeah, I think I just explained it, Rachel. So our friend Rachel is walking on sunshine, for people who don't know. He graduated, he's in architect. Oh dear architect, let's see. Oh dear architect. I cannot call myself an architect yet, Rachel, because here in the US, you still need an extra step, right? Which is pass 6 exams in order to get your license. And once you do that, then you can, of course, call yourself an architect. So, but thank you, Rachel. Yes, congrats. All right, so I think we are ready to start today's live stream. And as always, you can interrupt me at any time, right, during my presentation, because I like to do this very interactive. That's why I love to do these live streams. Everything is live. You can stop me, ask me a question, I can answer it. Otherwise, I'll just do a regular video, right? Recorded video. Okay. So let me get ready on my screen over here. And we're gonna start today's live stream. Okay. Let me get ready over here. Okay. All right. Oh, by the way, something very important that I forgot to mention is that today we're gonna have a contest. Yes, so we're gonna explain how the contest is gonna be by the end of this live stream, but the winner of this contest is gonna be able to go to our next CAD meeting, right? We do these CAD meetings monthly with our members here on YouTube. And so this is a way for us to kind of networking between us, talk about AutoCAD, talk about anything in general. And yeah, so there's going to be a contest in order to win a free pass to go to our CAD meeting, which is next week on Sunday at 10 a.m. also. So yeah, let's see who wins this contest. All right, let's see over here. Before we continue, we have a couple of comments. It's our friend Xavier says hi. Hi Xavier, glad that you are here with us today. We're gonna learn something very cool, right, to improve your workflow in AutoCAD, right? We're gonna save some time today. Xavier is also saying, how are you all? I'm good, Xavier. I'm very excited for today's live stream. Again, we're gonna create this awesome dynamic block, right? Hopefully it's gonna save you some time. All right, let's see. All right, let's start. So let me tell you the story about a client that I just was working with, right? My client used to, whenever he needed to add a 3-compartment sink to his floor plan, he used to grab his compartment sink and place it, of course, on the wall. He had to rotate it to align it with the specific wall. And not only that, but since the sink that he needed sometimes had different sizes, he used to explode his sink, right? So that way he can change the sizes of his sink. For instance, he needed a shorter sink, so he used to stretch his sink like so, and go ahead and say a stretch from, and that way he could go ahead and exactly stretch his sink. For instance, he needed a 70-inch sink, and then finally he will go ahead and move all of his balls to the center of his sink, so that way he could go ahead and finish his sink like so, right? So you can see all of the trouble that my client had utilizing or placing his sinks in this way, because as you know, sinks have different sizes and dimensions and so on. So I'm gonna show you today how I was able to help my client creating a useful dynamic block, right? And we're gonna learn that today. So let me then go ahead and undo everything that I just did with Control Z. All right, so that's the block that he had, and let me move it to the side so we can start creating this awesome dynamic block, right? I'm gonna walk you through all of the challenges and how we solve these challenges so he can work more efficient, right? So the first thing I did was, of course, rotated this block, because I don't think the most appropriate angle would be for that block. So this again is a 3-compartment sink, and I proceeded to explode this sink, of course, because I wanted to start from scratch. So one of the first things I did was go ahead and select all of the items and went and go under my property palette to see that there were on layer 0 and the color by layer, the line type, of course, by layer also. This would be to avoid any future problems, right? So once I made sure that all of my items were correct, the next thing I did was ask one question to my client, right? And the question was the following. What was the most used 3-compartment sink size that he usually used, right? because this is an important question, because that's the size that I needed to start with, right? And he answered 7 feet 6 or 90 inches. So that's why I stretched this block to start with. So I stretched this, again, this 3 compartment sink from this point, and said from all the way from here was 90 inches. And then I proceeded to move my 3 center bolts and place it exactly on the middle of my sink, like so. So here, this is the standard, I mean, not the standard, but the most used block from my client. And this way I could go ahead and make this into a static block first, right? Using the block command. So over here, I proceeded to, of course, rename my block. Again, you could rename this as you wish, but this is how I'm gonna rename it for now. So the lazy tricom sink. And then of course I checked the open in block editor, so that way I could go ahead and select my base point. Now the base point needed to be very strategic. So for instance, I could go ahead and select my base point on any of these corners, but that would be problematic. So what I did is I placed my base point in the center of my block, like so. So once I did that, I was of course now on the block editor, and here is where I started adding some actions and parameters. But before we do that, let me go to the chat because we have a comment. 2 classes, I'm doing good for saying, hope you are as well. Oh, okay, it looks like you guys are talking between you guys, so that's fine. That's awesome that that you are not only interacting with me now, but between also you guys, because now you know each other, so that's great. All right, so let's keep moving with 5 people live. Again, we're live here, and this is very excited to be here, right? Learning or going through creating a dynamic block that I created for a client, but I think it's gonna be also very useful to you. All right, so once I was over here, so the first thing that my client was struggling with is, as you previously saw on the demonstration, stretching or increasing the size of his block. So in order to help with that, I proceeded to add a linear parameter using my block authoring palette over here. So that's what I did, started a linear parameter. Of course, if you're not seeing your block authoring palette, it would be right here on your ribbon. So you simply click on it and to make it show. And then, so I started again the linear parameter and following the instructions that says specify a start point. I went ahead and did that. And of course, my endpoint would be over here, like so. Right. So once I did that, I proceeded to, so first I saw this exclamation yellow mark. That simply means that this parameter needs an action in order to perform, right? Or to work. So that's not a problem. First though, I selected my linear parameter and changed the property of the number of grips, because right now was 2 and I needed only 1. So that's what I did. I changed it to 1. So you can see immediately the change. Now I only have 1 grip. So then what I proceeded to do was add a action, right? And this action was the stretch action. So following the instructions on the command line, I needed to select my parameter and then select my associated point, which was over here. So once I did that, then I needed to specify the stretch frame, and the stretch frame would be this, and the objects would be the following, like so. So once I pressed enter, I needed to test this block, right? Because that's a way for me to see if there are any problems before I proceed adding the next parameters or actions. So that's what I did, went and test the block from the ribbon, and this way I went ahead and test my block really quick, right? So if I stretch it, it was working nicely. However, we had a problem, right? The problem was that, well, at this stage I had many problems, right? One was, of course, the grip for my base point wasn't moving accordingly, as well as my balls weren't moving accordingly. So a way that I solved this was, but before we proceed, we have a comment. Let me read those. Xavi, okay. Felicia Hernandez said, good morning, Luis. Lazy Arquitecto, bien con las transmisiones en vivo, bendiciones. Good morning, Felicia. Buenos días, espero que estés bien y gracias por estar aquí con nosotros. So for people who don't know, who are new, Spanish is my first language because I'm originally from Peru in South America. Javier says, Irving, I read your YouTube page journey post. That was motivational. Thank you, Javier. I mean, that's the story. I never told the story before because, you know, it's a little hard to let people know that you gave up, right? You gave up on something. That's not a good thing to do, but I wanted to share it because it's part of my story, right? How the channel evolved. So thank you, Xavier. For people who don't know, Xavier is talking about a post that I did on YouTube about how I reached 500 videos right now uploaded to the channel. So yeah, if you are interested in that, you can check that out later. So let's keep moving. Okay. So in order to solve this problem, right, the problem of having the balls not moving or stretching accordingly to keep center with my sink, what I did was go ahead and add another action, in this case the move action. So once I started that, I selected my parameter, of course, which one? This one, and then the associated point, which was, of course, over here. Finally, I selected my objects. In this case were my 3 central balls, right? So once I did that, I went ahead and tested my block, and what I noticed was that when I stretch now, indeed my balls are moving or stretching, but not in the way that I would like, which was keeping it centered. So again, that's another problem, but the way I solved it was selecting the move action and then go to my property palette, and there was an option here called distance multiplier, and it was set to 1. That means that it's moving or stretching 1, but I wanted to do it only 0.5 or halfway, so that way when I test my block, my sink will, or my balls will follow and will keep center with my block. All right, so now we solved this first issue. However, I noticed that we had another issue, which was that my base point for my block, this is the base point where I can grab my block and place it, wasn't keeping center with my sink. So in order to solve that, what I did was I introduced a parameter, in this case the base point parameter. So the base point parameter, following the instructions, I needed to set a location, and of course would be here on the center of the sink, like so. Now the base point parameter doesn't give me, or didn't give me, any exclamation yellow marks as you saw. So I thought would be fine, right? So I tested the block, but when I tested it, you can see that still the base point is not working as expected. So then again, what I did is now I needed to add the base point to my move action. So the way I did it was selecting my move action, right click on it and say modify selection set. Once I did that, and following the instructions, of course, that says add, I added the base point by selecting it and then pressing enter. And now once I tested in my block, I saw that my block was working nicely now. The balls as well as the base point were moving accordingly with my block. So before we continue, we had a comment on the chat, and it's our friend Jeff. Jeff Wallington says, good morning everyone. Good morning, Jeff. Happy to have you here with us today. 8 people connected live. That's great that you are interested in saving time in AutoCAD, right? We don't want to waste time working on our projects, so that's why hopefully we are here. So let's keep moving. And so once I solved this issue with the balls and the base point for my 3-compartment sink block, I went ahead and added the next linear parameter, right? Because this would be for the length, and I needed another linear parameter for the width of my sink, or of my client's sink. So I proceeded to use the same steps, adding a linear parameter, going ahead like so, and simply clicking over here like so. So really quick, I did the same steps of removing one grip, adding a action, in this case the stretch action, as we previously did. Following, I'm gonna do this quickly because again they are the same steps. I selected my parameter, selected my associated point, I created my frame for a stretch, and finally I selected my objects including my ball over here like so, and press enter. So before I proceeded to keep adding and adding parameters and actions, again I tested in my block just to be sure that everything is working correctly with the new added stretch action, and just I saw another problem. So the problem, as you can see, is that even though the stretch action is working, the center of my balls are not moving accordingly, are not keeping center with the sink width, right? So in order to solve that, what I did is I went ahead, and before we continue, we have some comments on the chat that I would like to read. So let's see, it looks like our friends are talking between themselves. Duke says, Irving, my friend, I had to leave in 10 minutes. I just got a call from my daughter. I need to take my grandson to his soccer game. See you and everyone next week. All right, our friend Duke, thank you for letting everybody know that, and hopefully everything goes well over there. Our friend Xavier says, not morning for everyone, Jeff. It's 7:31 p.m. here. Shoot. Um, so here in Pennsylvania, right now it's 10:33 a.m. So 7:31 p.m. in Xavier's place. And what country is that, Xavier? So let's keep moving with 9 people connected live. That's great that more and more people are finding our live streams each Sunday. And let's keep moving. So, in order to solve the problem again of the center of my balls not keeping center with the width stretch, what I did was I added a new action. In this case was the stretch action. So once I followed the instructions, I selected my parameter, in this case this parameter over here, and then the associated point would be this one, and then finally the corner of a stretch. So I needed to be very strategic for the corner of a stretch, because I only needed to move or stretch this central part for the balls, right? So what I did is then I went ahead and select this part as well as this other part. So that way my central ball will only move this part. And then finally I selected it only the central part, like so. All right. So once I went ahead and tested the block to see that if indeed it fixed the problem or not, I noticed that no, it didn't fix the problem, because what's happening is that it's moving the central piece, but it's not keeping it central on the ball, right? So in order to fix that, what I did is I went ahead and closed the block editor, and I proceeded to select my stretch, right? My stretch, which was this one over here, as you can see. And then I went to my property and changed the distance multiplier again to 0.5. Let me select it again. So it's this stretch. Once you select an action, you can see like a highlighted preview of it, so you know which one is the right action, right? So I went ahead and changed it to 0.5, like so. And I went ahead and tested it. See right now. So I'm gonna stretch this, and it kind of fixed the problem. Now, I mean, the central piece is keeping central with the width. However, we're having another problem right now, which is that these lines, of course, are not keeping in the same location as our ball. So let's see how we can fix that live. But before, we have some comments on the chat. Xavier says Pakistan. Okay, that's interesting. Xavier, that's very far away, I believe, from where I am. Douglas says, it's next week our Zoom meeting? If so, write it down, everyone. Yes, our next CAD meeting is next Sunday. Doug, thank you for asking that. So let's keep moving. We're gonna have a contest, by the way, by the end of this live stream to win a free pass for our CAD meeting, right? So stay tuned for that. All right, so let's fix that issue about these lines moving. Right, so let me troubleshoot it live, right? Okay, so this is the stretch, where's the move? Okay, so again, we're doing this live, and okay, all right. So the problem was again, so we saw that the problem was these lines moving down, right, our sink when we stretch or change the width. And the problem was because again, when we selected our objects for this stretch, for the middle part stretch, we shouldn't have to select those lines. We only needed to select the circle or the central part. So in order to fix this, what I did was right click on my stretch action and went ahead and said modify selection set. Once I did that, oops, that's not the correct, okay, so, all right. So once I did that, I needed to again specify my stretch frame, but I already had a stretch frame, so I simply pressed enter to accept that stretch frame. And then I made sure that the remove option was selected, so that way I could go ahead and select these lines that were causing problems, right? And only leave selected the following part. So once I did that and press enter and tested my block to see if there weren't any problems with this, indeed the block looked good now. There wasn't any weird moving parts or anything, and so far we were ready to go, right? So the next thing that happens with this block or with this client was that we couldn't just give this three compartment sink to the client like that, because as you saw, this will give random sizes, and sinks don't work like that, right? Sinks come in standard sizes. So the way I solved this issue of random sizes or stretches for width and length was I did some research and found some standard sizes for this three compartment sink, right? So I found the following information as well as this information right here. And of course, this would be for the L1 would be the length, and of course W1 would be the width. And if we go ahead over here, we can see that we have some standard length as well as some standard width for our three compartment sinks. So one of the questions that I asked my client was, do you want me to kind of simplify this process, which was get rid of the half inches? Do you want me to round it to, and he said yes, so to round it to the nearest inches, right? So no use of half inch then. That was based on, again, on my client's feedback. But using this chart, I proceeded to set some standard sizes for this sink, right? And the way I did it was first changing the name of my parameter over here on the property. This would be not distance 1, but would be length, and this would be not distance 2, but would be width. So for the length, I started adding some standard sizes by going to my property palette and set the distance type to list. Once I did that, I had an option to start adding values over here and following, of course, our chart over here. Let me rearrange it so you can see it better. Okay, I think you can see it. So again, following some, oops, it just went away when I clicked that. Anyway, I'm gonna keep it on my second screen. All right, so following some standard sizes, I start adding 120 inches, 98 inches, 76, we already have 76, 90, sorry, 76, 90 inches, which was 7 feet 6, so we don't need that, 74, and finally 58 inches. So once I had all of my options, I clicked OK, and then when I went ahead and test my block, I saw that indeed I was only able to stretch to those certain standard sizes, which was again a way to control this stretching, right? And you can see that the smaller 3-compartment sink fits perfectly. So again, that was a plus for this block. Now, of course, I needed to do the same steps for this width, right? For the width of my sink. You never want to give a client or somebody that's gonna use your block something like this. So I did again the same steps, went ahead to my property, changed the distance to list, and went ahead and following my chart, I saw that for the width there would be 30 inches and 24 inches only, so that was fine. I proceeded to, I already have this one, so I proceeded to go and add the 24 as well as the 30 inches, like so. Oops, the 30 inches is the 2 feet 6. So you can see that if you put the same number, it won't add it. So that's a smart thing from AutoCAD that does that, so you don't have repetitive numbers. So, and then I proceeded to click OK. So again, when I tested my block, I saw that my width will now stretch only to those certain sizes, right? So everything was working nicely on this block. Now another thing that I asked my client about, or about this block, was if he find himself constantly looking at the block properties to check its size, right? And the answer was yes. He used the dimensions for that. So whenever he wanted to check the size of his block, he used a dimension, right, to see, oh, what was the size of this block. Okay, it's 7 feet 6. So I wanted to make his life easier, right? And in order to do that, I added a size label, right? A size label to the sink, so he will know immediately its size. And the way I did it was utilizing the dimension. So with the DLI shortcut, I added a dimension to this sink block from here all the way up here, like so. And of course, for the width also, we needed a dimension. So that's what I did, and went ahead and selected my dimension like so. Now, another question that came out during our meeting was, do you want this size label in inches, or sorry, in feet and inches, or only in inches? And he said that he will, when he survey this, when he survey a building, he will 100% put the sizes of any equipment in inches. So knowing that, what I did is I went ahead and select one of these dimensions, and on the property palette, what I did was go ahead and change some of its properties, right? For instance, in order to change the feet and inches to only inches, what I did was go ahead and went to the primary units and selected from architectural to decimals. Once I did that, I needed to change the precision also. And finally, I needed to add a suffix, a dim suffix of the inches character, like so. And that way I had these 90 inches sink compartment, like so. Now, I didn't need all of these dimension parts over here, the arrow, the dim line, and so on. So I started to turn those off over here under the lines and arrows. So I start turning off again some of these items that were not needed. I only needed a label, so the arrows were off. Now I needed to also turn off the dim line 1 and 2, as well as the extension lines, right? So I turn those off, and that way I will only see my label, like so. So once I did that, of course, I match properties to my other dimensions, so I don't have to do it again. So I proceeded to match properties, and that way I will only see a label over here. Another thing that I did was test my block, right, to see how it was behaving. So I saw that whenever I stretch this, my label or size for my sink wouldn't update, right? So, and this was because we needed to do an extra step. So the step that we needed was to add these new dimensions to our stretch actions. So that's what I did. I selected my stretch and right click and said modify selection set. When it asked me for the corner of stretch, it was the same corner, so I simply pressed enter. And then I proceeded to select the add option and of course select my dimension and press enter. I did the same step for this other dimension. So I selected my stretch action, modify, press enter to accept that, and then select my new dimension, like so. So once I tested the block to see that everything was working, indeed it was working nicely. My size label was updating, as well as the width also, right? So again, this was a convenient way for my client to immediately know the size of the 3-compartment sink. However, he didn't want this to show when he print his floor plans, and the way to fix this issue or to make this happen was going ahead and put these dimensions on the depth point layer, so that way they won't print on any of his plans, right? So before we continue, let me read a couple of comments on the chat, right, before we keep moving. And it says, Douglas says, it's next. Okay, so I already read that. Gotta go. Had a great week, everyone. See you next week. All right, dude. So let's keep moving with 7 people connected live. That's great. We're creating this awesome dynamic blog that I made for a client, and I think it's going to be helpful also to you. So once I implemented this label distance, the next thing that happened was that whenever my client needed to, let me go ahead to the test block. Whenever my client needed to place his sink, he will have to manually go ahead and rotate it, right, to align it with the wall. And I didn't want that. So how I solved this issue was implementing a new parameter. In this case was the alignment parameter. So once I selected that, following the instructions says specify base point, and my base point had to be the same as my block. So I go ahead and place it like so, and then of course I had to test it, right? So the way I did it was drawing a huge rectangle and going ahead and test my block, and it was again working nicely. It was aligning now with a wall, right? Now the thing is, the problem I saw was whenever I stretch my or change sizes of my sink, my new parameter wouldn't align with my central base point, and that's not what we want, right? We want always consistency. So the way how I fixed that, how I kept my alignment parameter on the middle of my block, was simply adding this new item to our move action, right? So I did right click and said modify selection set, and then I proceeded to add this alignment grip as well as this alignment over here. So once I did that and tested my block, I saw that it was working nicely. It was now moving accordingly to keep center. So after I did all of these steps, after I added these parameters, added these actions, it was time for me to do a final test of this block. And the way I did it was close the block editor and of course click save the changes. So once I did that, right here is the block, of course. And so once I did that, and I could of course add this to test it to my tool palette right over here. So I'm gonna create a quickly new palette over here, and if you don't see your property palette, you can open it with the Control-3 on your keyboard. And so this way I could go ahead, and after I save my drawing, of course, I could go ahead and drag it to my tool palette, right? So the next time that my client needed to place a sink, he could simply go to his floor plan and select the sink and go ahead and place it exactly where he needed. Not only that, but if he needed a different size, he could simply go ahead and simply pick the size that he need, or simply type it, for instance 76 inches, like so. The same for the width. He could have a smaller or a bigger sink, and this way he had this sink ready to go. So what do you think, guys, about this 3-compartment sink that we just created? Would that be helpful, yes or not? Let me know on the chat. I want to hear from you before we wrap up today's live stream. And let me jump to the contest now, right? Before we wrap up. So the contest is very simple. You're gonna win a free pass to our next CAD meeting, which is this coming Sunday at 10 a.m. All you have to do is say meeting on the chat. Just put meeting, the word meeting on the chat, and you will be able to participate for this contest. Again, this is usually for our YouTube members, so we do this monthly, this CAD meeting, but I like to give this away. So just say meeting on the chat, and while you do that, I'm gonna, before I forget, I'm gonna go ahead and share this blog with or upload it right to my Patreon page before I forget. So I'm gonna copy this blog, Control-C, and I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna go here and paste it. Reset block, and I'm gonna place it right here. So I'm gonna post this to my Patreon page for folks again who are supporting my work. I'm gonna go ahead and say yes. While you do meeting on the chat, right? So to do the contest, I'm gonna do that and go ahead and go to my Patreon page. It's right here. And I'm gonna add this upload. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm gonna do this before I forget because I always forget. So documents, social, Patreon, dynamic blocks, 3 compartment sync. That's it. And then Patreons only. And yep, so upload, publish now. All right, so we're ready to go. Let's see if people want to participate on the contest and who's gonna be the winner. Let me go to the comments. Oh, not that one, to this one. And let me go to the chat. All right, so before we wrap up again today's live stream, hopefully this was helpful, right? Let me know in the chat what do you think about this dynamic block that we just created. We walk through all of the challenges and how we solved it, because again, everything is not perfect, right? Everything, when you create these dynamic blocks, you'll face challenges, and you know you have to resolve them, right? And that's why I show you the whole process. So let's see who's gonna win the free pass for our CAD meeting. Walking, our friend Rachel says that DLI dim linear is fantastic, as I'll be incorporating that into my civil blocks. That's nice to hear that, Rachel. Xavier says, I have saved your stream. Nice, Xavier. So for people who don't know, one of the benefits that I found to give to my YouTube members, right, is save these live streams. So I save these live streams for them so they can rewatch it at any moment. And that's a way, again, that I found to say thank you to these folks, right, and that they are supporting. So but Xavier is recording it also. I mean, that's all up to you, Xavier. This blog was nice. Xavier says meeting on the chat. All right, so that's great, Xavier, that you are participating on the free pass for our CAD meeting. So if there are no other people saying meeting, you are gonna be automatically the winner, right? So let's see. Rachel says also, usually in dynamic blocks you can only have one visibility state on one block. However, I've seen dynamic blocks with 2 visibility states. Yes, just Rachel. So that was one of the ideas that I had first with this block. Basically, my idea was, one of the questions that I didn't mention that I asked the client was, do you care about the size of the balls, of the central balls? Do you care about them? And his answer was no. Since he explained me that since his work was mostly architectural, the important part of the 3 compartment sink was the overall size and width, but the central balls size wasn't really an issue. So then I didn't use VLOOKUPs. I was thinking on using VLOOKUPs. That's where you can have multiple visibility states to pick the exact size. Let's say 120 by 24 and so on. But again, since the balls were an important part on this block, I went ahead and utilized stretch actions and parameters. But that's a great question, Rachel. Maybe I'll have another client who requests the same block, but taking care also of the size of the balls. Then I might do an update version, who knows. Wellington says, very helpful since I work in the food service industry. Glad to hear that, Jeff. Rachel says, jackpot for you, Jeff, that block. We have 9 people live so far. That's awesome, guys, that you are still here with me. Maybe that's because you found this blog helpful, right? Sat says, hi, how are you, Master Irving? I'm good, Sat. I think you're a little bit late to the live stream. We're almost wrapping up this live stream. But if you just arrived, we're having a contest right now. So to participate, just write meeting on the chat, and I'm gonna pick a winner for a free pass for our CAD meeting this Sunday, right? So usually it's for YouTube members. That's another way I found to give back a little, right? To give back my time, right? To these folks that are supporting the show. So if you want to participate as that, just put meeting on the chat. Rachel says, so the DLI, I can keep the dims line that shows the dimensions. I don't use ticks, I use arrows. So you're talking about, Rachel, the dimensions. Yes, of course, you can keep the arrows, you can keep the dim lines. It's all up to you, but a personal preference for this specific client was that he didn't want to show any of these labels in the final printing, right? So that's why I placed it on the dev point, and I also only showed the distance number, not arrows, nothing. It's just to keep things simple, right? But you can leave them also. That's all up to you, Rachel. We have another person participating on the contest, and it's our friend Kumar. Says meeting. Hi Kumar, hopefully you can win this contest. I'm gonna start on my second screen getting ready for the contest, right? Because I think we're almost done over here. Let's see if we can. Okay, so I'm gonna start getting ready on my second screen, guys, to pick the winner, right? Because we're almost ready to wrap up today's live stream. Asad says meeting also. Oh, that's great that more and more people are interested on joining our CAD meetings now. That's great. Again, for people who don't know what we're talking about, maybe you just arrived. Our CAD meetings is a monthly meeting that we do on Zoom for our YouTube members, right? Because that's another way I'm giving something back to you guys who support my work. I'm giving back my time to, interact with you, ask questions, network, or meet different folks from all around the world, right? Our friend Duke, for instance, he's a contractor, and I think he's from New Jersey. And then our friend Jeff, I think he's from, I forgot, but yeah, so that's a nice way to meet people, to talk about anything that you want to talk, of course, about AutoCAD too. But that's our CAD meetings. And Shavir says 2 more persons. Hey. Believe me, they don't know meeting time. Okay, so it's your last chance to participate on the contest. So I'm gonna get ready over here. I'm gonna get ready to pick the winner. All right. Random comment. Random comment picker. YouTube. Okay. All right, I'm ready to pick a winner, guys. And that way we will. Oops. That way we will be wrapping up this live stream. Okay. All right, guys. So Rachel says, I want to show the dimensions on the dynamic block. Yes, Rachel, you can do that. So you can just don't do the steps where I turn off each arrow, each linear dimension. Like, you can just avoid that step and just show your dimension as it usually shows, right? All right, let's see if we can do this. So let's see, include replies to comments, duplicate users, exclude users. What's this? So random names. Our friend Xiomara says me. No, I just the word it's meeting on the chat. Xiomara, thank you for being here. By the way, it's not me, it's meeting. Thank you though for trying to participate. Let's see how we can pick a winner. What? The video has comments disabled. This means no, doesn't have comments disabled. Oh my god. No, we're gonna pick a different, guys, because this is not working. Let's see over here. Oh, we're having some technical difficulties here, guys, because it says that this live stream, the comments have been disabled, but I don't know why they are showing disabled. Let me do a last try before I give up with this. Not working either. Oh boy, now how we're gonna pick our winner now, guys. Working on Sunshine says, just allow them all in, Irving. Yeah, that's what we'll do, I guess. Yeah. All right, guys. Great idea by our friend Rachel, always saving me when we have technical difficulties. All right, guys, done. So all of you, Asad, Shavir, and Kumar, those three folks are gonna be in our next CAD meeting on Sunday. All right, congratulations to to the three of us, to three of you. That was very funny. You can write on paper and then choose it like lottery, same as we play in our child. Rachel. Rachel's happy. And Xiomara, yes, and Xiomara also. Rachel, thank you for always saving me. Rachel, don't you want to be how do you call a person who manages the comments on a live stream? I think it's called a moderator or something, because you are always yeah, you want to be a moderator, Rachel? I don't know, we can talk that later. But yes, so Xiomara, so there are 4 folks that are gonna be invited on our next CAD meeting. Xiomara, Kumar, Xavier, and Asad. So make sure you send me your emails when by the end of this live stream. Just put it on the comment, right? So I'm gonna send you the link to join, right? Don't forget to do that. Kumar says thank you. Thank you and congratulations, Xavier and Kumar. And Xiomara also. We are where we can find the meeting link. I just explained. Just send me your personal or your email, or just put it on the comments for any of my videos, right? Because I always get notified when you comment on any of my videos. So just put your email there. Hey. That was funny. All right, guys, I think we had some technical difficulties, but thanks to our friend Rachel that saved the whole night. I mean, the whole day. We're good. We have 4 winners for our next Academy. You always hard on comments. Yeah. All right, guys. So I'm gonna stop right here, and hopefully you learned something useful today. And we're gonna do this CAD meeting next Sunday, right, at 10 a.m. So have a wonderful rest of the day, and I'll see you next time. I go and this.